Today is a day where you are going to need to be weather aware. About 30 minutes from right now, we'll check in with our friends at the National Weather Service and get some updates on the storm threat in much of the state of that's in place for much of the state of Mississippi. That's coming up in just a little while. But right now, Andrea Sanders joins us. She is Commissioner of the Mississippi Department of Child Protection Services. Thanks so much for coming in studio this morning. Great to see you.
Thank you, Richard. Good to see you.
Andrea, this is I feel like I say this every time we talk about CPS or protecting children. It's not a fun topic to talk about, but it's a topic that needs to be talked about and probably needs more conversation than it gets in the public domain. What's going on right now? High level stuff at CPS, the department that you oversee.
Right now we're taking care of 4,127 children this morning that are actually in the state's custody. We're the agent on behalf of the state to take care of these children. We stand in the shoes of their parents. What's unusual about that is that represents an increase of over 25% in the number of children since I started this job 4 years ago. And that's unusual. It's not happening in other parts of the country, and I think it is something that, as a state, we need to talk about what's driving those numbers and what we can do to safely reduce the number of children who have to be in the state's custody for their safety.
So what is driving those numbers?
There are we've been watching this data now for almost 2 years. A lot of the kids that are coming into custody have very high mental health needs, older kids. They're coming out of the juvenile justice system. And so it's a variety of factors, but the high volume of high need children is it's what's been unusual in our caseloads. Some of that's happening across the country as well, but Mississippi's, I'd say we have a long way to go to be really well prepared as a community for meeting the mental health needs of children and youth, as well as substance abuse needs. There's a high volume of substance abuse in young adults in our state, and so all of those factors are combining to just continue to stress the system.
Almost all of the reporting as it pertains to immigration has a political slant to it, right? You're for one side or you're for the other. You're either deport everybody, get rid of it, they're here illegally, or let everybody in. I think we can set that politically slanted reporting aside just for a second. I'm curious what CPS is facing in terms of children of immigrants that are here, illegal immigrants in particular in Mississippi.
Well, I'm really focused on just taking care of the children, and we have always had a certain volume of kids who are here as children of immigrants, and the agency's been called on to, generally by a judge in youth court, to help transport children back to their home countries and reunite them with reunite them with their parents or some extended relatives. We end up doing that in a handoff. We take them to someone that we know, that we've had their own country try to give us some assurances of safety for the child. So we're really, we're not involved in deportations, but, I think it's safe to say that that's also going to drive our numbers higher in Mississippi.
So are you, even as we sit here and talk about that number of 4,000 that are in your care this morning, there's a significant percentage of that 4,000 of children from those who are immigrants, illegal or otherwise?
I don't think it's a significant percentage at this
Okay.
point in time, but we certainly it's not common for us to have a number of children from immigrants.
Yeah. I think I heard in your answer there, and correct me if I'm reading too much into this. The job of CPS is to, at least in part, strip the political nature out of it, right? I mean, your job is to care for the children, regardless of who their parents are, regardless of why they are here, and some of those things get sorted out later. But when those children are in your care, your job is to make sure that they're taken care of, well fed, they've got a roof over their head, they've got clothes. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that's absolutely accurate. These are minor children. They're vulnerable. By definition, they should have been abused or neglected to be in our jurisdiction, to even be in our custody. Not that that's it's not a threshold we want to see for any child, but our system is, we've got limited resources. We've got we have to contract for every bed that we put a child in, which sounds coarse, but we pay for room and board. I don't have big buildings with beds in them for children. And so, the focus is on keeping the child safe at the time the child needs to be kept safe, and hopefully for only, every single day that's necessary, but not longer than that.
Can you paint a picture for me of what those living arrangements look like, and what a typical day is like for a child in the care of CPS? And I ask that because I feel like maybe a lot of us have got this. I don't know if it's like Little Orphan Annie or whatever. We've got like this 1930s, 1950s image of children who are being institutionalized, and my hope is that has changed over time. Can you kind of paint that picture for us?
Certainly, yeah. We don't have orphanages anymore. Generally, we try to keep children either in a foster family, so a family that's unknown to the child but has stepped up and said, we're willing to take this child in, love them like they're our own, knowing that it's more likely than not that this is temporary, that they will, a lot of the reasons we have children has to do with deep poverty or social issues in the family, and if those can be resolved, the child can go back home. But the majority, what we know is that children are safest when we can work with somebody who's already known to the child, extended family, fictive kin, we call it. So, maybe that coach at school that the kid has known through basketball, and so the trauma is easier on the child when we can put them somewhere that is familiar, that keeps them in their home school environment. But life in the day of a child in foster care, I do a lot of listening to kids, especially older kids who have, I prefer to call it graduating from the system, or who are about to graduate. An old term is aging out of custody, and it's a term I hope we can eliminate in Mississippi by not letting kids age out of custody, by having a better disposition for them than just sort of putting them out into the world. But when I listen to them and hear about their stories, they've generally been in the system for quite a while. In Mississippi, the youth court really has total control over who goes into custody. And when they come in and stay indefinitely, the outcomes are not great for them. And the experience is not great. They end up moving a lot. When I originally took this job, I thought, well, I should just do better. We should not move children so often. It's trickier than that. We're a state government agency trying to be a parent to children. And, I've come to realize that state government's never going to be a good substitute for family.
Well, that's well said.
It's
there
a
are
little
lot of things
discouraging.
that it is, and it's one of the things that, that we've got a partnership with Palmer Home, and that we've worked extensively with Sally Kate Winters Family Services, and One of the questions that I've always had for especially the social workers that are there is like, how do you do this every single day? Like, how do you put your head on the pillow at night and turn it off? And it takes a very special person. You got time to hang with us for a few more minutes?
You bet.
Andrea Sanders, Commissioner of the Mississippi Department of Child Protection Services. Talking about an issue that we probably don't talk about enough. Mornings with Richard Cross, SuperTalk, Mississippi. We're back with you right after this. Thanks for being with us. Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk, Mississippi. Andrea Sanders is my guest this morning. She's Commissioner of the Mississippi Department of Child Protection Services. And we're talking about some of the challenges that exist within CPS, within the state of Mississippi. You know, one of the things that has always befuddled me is you have parents out there or non-parents out there that want to be parents, that want to adopt children. And I've heard these stories of the thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars that are spent to adopt a child from another country and how arduous the adoption process is. And yet I hear from you that we've got 4,000 children that are under the care of CPS. And is there not a better way to handle the adoption process, a more, I don't know, fiscally viable way to handle the adoption process for those parents who desperately want to be, or those people that desperately want to be parents, but for whatever reason have not been able to?
The short answer is yes. I do think that we've really got to rethink how we handle children and families. Taking kids into custody is it's a very big move in a family. It is it's a harsh result, but it's necessary for probably 25% of the kids that we see. Clear. Absolutely necessary. This child,
and that's a rolling 25%, right?
Oh, sure.
I mean, that's not 1,000 kids today and the problem solved. That's if there are 1,000 kids today, they're going to be 1,000 kids a year from now.
We are getting children to permanency faster than we ever have in this state. It was one of the focuses when I got into the agency, and yet more come. So yes, it is always a rolling issue. But on the adoption front, I was adopted through Mississippi Children's Home, which is now Canopy Children's Solutions, when I was an infant. And that was my biological mother recognized that she wasn't able to take care of me herself, and so voluntarily gave me up for adoption. That really speeds the process up a lot. But the children we deal with, by legal definition, are in our care because of neglect for about 78% of our kids, and then abuse. And so those kids have very special needs when they get into the system. When they come in for neglect, a lot of the time we can work with their family and try to get them back home, which is where most kids are, where they thrive the best. Yeah. The ones who really can't go back home,
even if it's not the best situation as we might describe it, that still is the best outcome for a child more times than not.
Yeah, I mean, I think the hard thing is that we all want to take a child and put them in the best home. But if we did that, knowing that we've got in Mississippi a third of our population living in poverty, deep poverty, you're talking about a mass migration of just taking a kid and putting them in a better home. So when we're talking about having a child who's ready to be adopted, that's after a process of, the court working with the family, trying to get the child safely back home. When that becomes clear that it's not an option anymore, we've got to terminate that parent's rights. That's a very serious matter legally. So you have to have, the right findings on the record. You have to be able to demonstrate that we gave those parents due process. And we're ready to proceed with this really harsh legal construct that's terminating a parent's rights permanently. And then we've got to get to adoption. And with kids in foster care, adoption is one of those things that, when we find a family, we have to, unless there are extraordinary circumstances, we want to spend 6 months making sure that that family's a good fit, because taking a child out of one family, having them in several foster families potentially while they're in the system, and then putting them in an adoptive family that doesn't work is extraordinarily traumatic for children. That constant, something, they internalize it, and it feels like a failure to them.
Along those lines, there are, you mentioned Canopy, I mentioned Palmer Home, and there's so many others. Sunnybrook Children's Home, another place there in the Jackson metro area that's done incredible work for a really long time. How do you vet and oversee the facilities that are caring for children? Because these places that have this incredible reputation, that's not the case for all places that call themselves children's homes. We would prefer not to think about that, but it absolutely has to be thought about to make sure that you don't have places that are exploiting children in the name of doing what's right.
Richard, besides the fact that, I'm standing in the shoes of the parent for 27 kids, where we put them next is, it's something that keeps me up every night. And, bad things happen behind closed doors in places that you put children. And so, vetting them is really important. We do background checks on every adult that has contact with a child. We monitor those facilities that are licensed through us and go out and do regular walkthroughs and checks. But unfortunately, even in really good places, staff is hard to get. There's a lot of staff turnover. Yeah. And so it's something we have to be constantly vigilant about.
Yeah. Andrea Sanders, Commissioner with the Mississippi Department of Child Protection Services, CPS. You mentioned youth court a little while ago. Mm-hmm. Youth court, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong on this, it's a little bit different in that the judge that oversees youth court is elected, and there are, I think, limited qualifications that are required to put yourself up for a youth court judge. Is that system working? Is that a system within our judicial system in Mississippi that needs work, or is it operating the way that it's supposed to?
You said we weren't going to get into politics. No, it needs improvement. You said that each judge is elected. That's true in 26 counties where a full-time county court judge sits as the youth court. I don't know about special qualifications, but certainly they have to be an attorney who qualifies to be a judge. But in the remainder of the counties in Mississippi, the sitting chancery court judge, a whole different kind of court, is over the youth court, and all but one of those judicial districts appoints what's called a referee. So an attorney who handles that work on a part-time basis with no particular training, with no particular ongoing training. And that's where I just think as a state we've really got to decide, are we serious about helping children? And if so, we need people who are trained for that purpose and particularly, willing to continuously make themselves experts on, what evidence-based practices are, what years of data tells us is better for kids. And so it's a soapbox of mine, and I'm not saying that referees don't do the best job that they can. We've got some really good referees who are very dedicated out there, but this is really specialized work. and we're talking about, nuanced decisions that impact children for the rest of their lives, and they can't just be made based on what we remember about being parents or how we feel about parenting. It is, each small decision changes everything for a kid.
You had an uplifting story to tell me on the way out the door? Because I do know that there's some great stories also. We've got a minute left.
I do. We are actually, later this week, we're going to have an adoption ceremony in, drawing a blank right now where, but I've got 11 kids in sibling sets who will be adopted. And,
Wow.
Those are just so uplifting. That and seeing families get back together. So it's not all doom and gloom.
That's great. Andrea Sanders, Commissioner of CPS, God bless you and the work that you're doing.
Thank you.
We certainly know that it's necessary and appreciate your leadership. We'll talk soon.
Thank you.
Andrea Sanders, Commissioner with CPS, joining us. It's Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi. We're back right after this.